Hi class, this is Mr. Olson. The focus of the unit is on community health. In this unit, there are 3 lessons that relate to community health. This lesson will address Part 1, First Aid. For this presentation, you will need a pen or a pencil and a piece of paper in order to take a few notes. Please take a moment to get your materials organized by clicking the pause button. Okay, boys and girls, let's get started. When you see the words first aid, what words come to mind? For me, I think about being an ocean lifeguard captain and facing a ton of emergencies. They range from simple cuts on seashells and splinters from the boardwalk to cardiac arrest. Please take a moment and write down some of your ideas on a blank piece of paper. Remember to click the pause button, otherwise this presentation will keep going. Also, remember to bring your notes to class. Measures of the presentation. This presentation will be successful if we can answer the lesson questions clearly and effectively, apply the concepts learned about first aid to our lives, and share our knowledge and understanding of first aid, as well as our experiences with our classmates. Lesson objectives. As a result of listening to this presentation, you will come to understand the following. What is an emergency? What do you do in case of an emergency? What are universal precautions? And how do you respond to major and minor first aid emergencies? These 4 questions will be answered throughout this presentation. Key term, emergency. An emergency can be defined as a situation in which help is needed quickly. As all of you know, there are many types of emergencies. For example, fires, heart attacks, robberies, and poisons all reflect emergencies. The key is knowing what to do in case of an emergency. What do you do in case of an emergency? Well, it depends upon the type of emergency. However, most emergencies that are severe require 911. Other emergencies require calling the police, fire department, or your local poison control number. That said, there are times when you can give first aid during an emergency to someone who is in need. Key term, first aid. First aid is the quick, temporary care given to a person who has a sudden illness or injury. As an ocean lifeguard, I have performed many first aid procedures on beachgoers. Sometimes they involve simple procedures, such as splinters, cuts, and jellyfish stings. Other times it involves administering an AED, or bag valve mask, or even oxygen. Can you think of a time when you gave first aid? Universal precautions. Universal precautions are defined as steps taken to avoid pathogens, or what we call viruses and bacteria, in the body. To accomplish this, we must first wear disposable gloves. Second, Don't wear the same gloves more than once. Third, wash your hands with soap and water. Fourth, don't eat or drink while giving first aid. And finally, don't touch your mouth, your eyes, or your nose while giving first aid. The purpose for doing this is to avoid contact with viruses and bacteria. First aid for minor injuries. In this slide, we are going to discuss first aid for minor injuries, as well as steps taken to administer first aid. Let's begin with a familiar first aid injury, sunburn. Sunburn can be caused by UVA and UVB rays from the sun. As shown in the picture, sunburn causes the skin to become red and hot. When this happens, we should get ourselves or someone we know out of the sun immediately. However, to avoid sunburn, we should wear sunblock or even protective clothing that covers our skin. Just a side note, you can use white vinegar to take the sting out of sunburn. To the right of sunburn are fractures. A fracture is a break in the bone. And looking at the picture, there are two types of fractures, simple and compound. Simple are minor, while compound are major breaks to the bone. When either fracture occurs, you don't want to move the injured part. The best thing to do is splint if possible and get medical help immediately. To the right of sunburn are nosebleeds. A nosebleed is an injury to the blood vessels inside the nose. When this happens, please have you or someone you know sit down and lean slightly forward. Next, have him or her pinch their nose for about 10 minutes. If bleeding persists for more than 10 minutes, call 911. Below sunburn are bee stings. When a bee sting happens, the stinger from the bee will be left inside the skin. As a result, the stinger injects venom or poison into the skin. When caring for a bee sting, you should take the following steps. Scrape the stinger out with the edge of a card or a nail file. Next, clean with soap and water and put ice on the affected area. Finally, make sure the person you are caring for is not dizzy or having trouble breathing. If this is the case, then you need to call 911 because they are most likely going into anaphylactic shock. To the right of bee stings are spider bites. Some spider bites, such as brown recluse and black widow, can be poisonous. If it is a brown recluse or a black widow, call 911. If not, wash the area with soap and water and put ice on it to stop the swelling. Another minor injury are blisters. A blister is an area under the skin where fluid collects. When caring for a blister, please remember to clean with soap and water. Cover with a clean bandage and don't break the blister. Finally, rashes from plants are considered minor injuries. Rashes from plants can come from poison ivy, poison oak, and or poison sumac. When this happens, run cold water over the rash and use calamine lotion to stop the itching. First aid for major injuries. It is important to know that not all first aid emergencies are minor. Some can involve major injuries. For example, a major emergency may involve a heart attack. When this occurs, CPR must be given. CPR is a method of providing life support to someone who has stopped breathing and who has no heartbeat. by mouth-to-mouth breathing and strong rhythmic pressing on the chest. Heat stroke is another example of a major emergency. Heat stroke is harm done to the body due to being exposed to high temperatures. Victims of heat stroke usually show the following signs: rapid pulse, confusion, dry skin, which means there's no sweat, headache, and nausea. When you suspect heat stroke, call 911 immediately. Still, another major emergency is frostbite. Frostbite is overexposure to extreme cold. Symptoms include numbness and white, gray, or yellowish skin. If you see signs of frostbite, warm the area or person slowly. The final major emergency that we're going to discuss is choking. As you can see from the picture, the universal sign for choking are hands over the neck. The American Red Cross recommends 5 back blows and 5 abdominal thrusts in order to dislodge the object. If the victim becomes unconscious, call 911 immediately. Throughout this presentation, we addressed the following questions. What is an emergency? What do you do in case of an emergency? What are universal precautions? How do you respond to major and minor first aid emergencies? Understanding the concepts behind this lesson will help you now and in the future. Please visit the Schoology webpage and look for the assignment posted online. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to email me at eolson@freehold.twp.k12.nj.us. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this presentation.